Yes, welcome to Isofix in Tech, and today's video we are going to learn how to calculate first come first serve scheduling algorithm, also known as the convoy effect, or what call the process scheduling in operating systems. In simple terms, it is how to calculate the processes that how an operating system manages the processes that come in. For example, I'll use an example here that we're going to that will be our case study, and how we are going to use, or we are going to calculate. I will give an example here. They are saying consider the following set of processes to be scheduling for the execution of the first come first serve, and scan the basis. For example, the processes that we have here that we're going to use in today's video, we have P0, P1, P2, P3, and the arrival time we have for P0 we have 0, for P1 we have 1, for P2 we have 2, for P3 we have 3, and the execution time we have 3, 2, 6, and 4, as you're seeing. In this video, we're going to learn how to calculate the start time for each process, the finishing time, to calculate the turnaround time, the average turnaround time, the waiting, and lastly, the average waiting time. Let's dive into the solution and see how we calculate this kind of processes. To start, let's try to draw a simple table so that we can be able to follow up how to calculate it. For example, as the question was saying, I will simply draw here a small table here like this. That one will be for the process, for the arrival time, for the execution time, also known as the burst time, for the startup time, for the waiting time. Let's say here we shall calculate for the finishing time, and maybe we shall calculate here for the turnaround time. Don't mind about the straightness of the lines, as long as we understand how we can come up with the solutions to these problems. Let's draw like this. Here we have this is P0. Let this one be for P1. Then let this one be for P2, and then let this one be for P3. Like this, like this, like this. Okay, if this is the process, we shall call it PR process. And then this is the arrival time, this is RT. Then the execution time, sometimes you might find that they call it the burst time. Maybe let me try to use some bit of text. Let's see if I can get text here so that so these words can easily be seen. Okay, yes, this one is this is the burst time. We can call it, let me call it the burst time. Sorry, let me reduce this. Let's go put it on 10, and this is the burst time, burst time. Then I'll call that the burst time. Let me wrap this. Okay, let me reduce a little further. This is the arrival time, arrival T, or arrival time, yes, because of the size of the box. Then this one here I will call it the startup time. This is the start time. Okay, then this is the waiting time. Let's put here, call it waiting time. This is waiting time. Then here we shall call it maybe the finish time. And lastly, we shall find here, we shall calculate from here the turnaround time. Turnaround time. Let me try to check this and see. This one was I'll call it the processes. I'm going to list here the processes, and then this one here, this is P0, then this is P1, then here this is P2, and then lastly this is P3. Okay, in the previous example we saw that P0 was assigned 0, here it was assigned 1. We increase a little further here. Then this one was assigned 2, and then P3 was assigned 3. Okay, now the execution time. In other place you might find they have written the burst time, but sometimes you might find the execution time. So this is 3, and this one was assigned 2. It was assigned 2. Then this one was assigned 6. Then this one here was assigned 4. Okay. Now, how do we calculate the start time, the waiting time, the finish time, and lastly the turnaround time? To simplify the things, normally we use what we call the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart helps you in generating this kind of answers. So I will draw here my small Gantt chart. This one will be my Gantt chart. Then I'll put here, this one will be for P0, this one will be for P1, this one will be for P2, then this one will be for P3. Let me wrap this off, I think. Okay. Okay. Now, this one here, this was for the Gantt chart. This was for P0, not so. This is P0. This is P1. Sorry, P1. Then this is P2. And then lastly, this is P3. Okay, now how do we use the Gantt chart to calculate the start time, the waiting time, the finish time, and the turnaround time? When you look at the table above, P0, the arrival time for P0 was 0. So which means P0 started at 0. So we shall write here a 0. Let's say P0 here started here with a 0. Let's put here a 0. And then you see that P0, the burst time, it ended at 3. So which means its line here for P0 here is a 3. Okay. Then P1. P1, its burst, P1 started, which means if P0 ended at 3, it means P1 also started at 3. And they said that the execution time for P1 was 2. So which means if it was 2, you add the starting time and then the burst time. So it is 3 here plus 2. So which means P1 ended at 5. Let's hope we're following. Maybe to elaborate again, P0 started at 0 and then it ended at 3. Then P1 started. However, when this one started at 3, remember it took it 2 units of time. So which means when you add 2 and 3, you get 5. So you can just keep on adding. So if P1 ended at 5, it means that P2 started at 5. However, it took P2 6 units of time. So which means it is now 6 plus 5, which is 11. Then P3 started at 11. However, it took P3 4 units of time, as you've seen here. So 4 plus 11 will be 15. I think you can now see how our Gantt chart is going to generate for us the answers. So from this, we can now be able to shift it to our table. The start time for P0 started at 0. So which means this one is a 0. It started at 0. So start time for P0 is 0. Then start time for P1 is a 3, because P1 started at now 3, not so? So start time for P1 is a 3. Then start time for P2 started at 5. Yes, P2 started at 5. Then lastly, P3 started at 11. So you can see that now we've already found our start time for the following processes, whereby P0 started at 0, P1 started at 3, P2 started at 5, and lastly P3 started at 11. Then we go to waiting time. Now, the formula for calculating the waiting time is the start time minus the arrival time, whereby we found the start time here and the arrival time is here. So the formula here, we shall say now, for P0 or the process 0, you'll find that it is 0 minus 0. So 0 minus 0 is a 0, not so. So the waiting time will be now 0. Then we go to process 1. Process 1, the start time was 3, then arrival time was 1. So this one will be 3 minus 1. So this is 3 minus 1. So which will be 2. So the waiting time for process 1 is 2. We go to waiting time process number 2. Process number 2, starting time was 5. And then the arrival time was 2. So this one will be 5 minus 2, which is equal to 3. So here it is now what? 3. Then we go to process number 3 as the last. The starting time was 11 and the arrival time was 3. So 11 minus 3, which is equal to 8. So this one is equal to 8. So we found the waiting time. Now calculating what we call the finishing time, or some people might call it the completion time. The finishing time, you can see, we shall go back to our Gantt chart. You'll find that P0 here ended at 3. So this is the finishing time for P0. P0 ended here at 3, not so. So which means the finishing time for P0 is 3. Then you'll see that the second line for P1 here, it ended at 5. So P1, process 1 ended at 5. So process 2 here ended at 11. So we shall put here process 2 ended at 11. And then lastly, process 3 ended at 15. Process 3 ended at 15. Okay, so now lastly we found the finishing time. Now let's calculate what we call the turnaround time. So the formula for calculating the turnaround time is the finish time minus the arrival time. So we found here the finish time here, then the arrival time is here. So the finish time here, we shall say 3 minus 3, which is the finishing time, minus 0, which is the arrival time. So 3 minus 0, which is the arrival time here, is 3. So the turnaround for process 0 is 3. Then we go to process 1. Process 1, the finish time was, process number 1, the finish time was 5 and the arrival time was 1. So this is 5 minus 1, so which is equal to 4, not so. So the turnaround for process number 1 is 4. Okay, now we go to process number 2. Process number 2, the finish time was 11, and then the arrival time was 2. So 11 minus 2, which is equal to what? 9. So the turnaround time for process number 2 is 9. We go to process number 3 as the last. The finish time for process number 3 was 15. So 15 minus 3 is equal to 12. So this one will be now equal to 12. So the turnaround time is equal to 12. Now we've calculated all this. We've found the start time, the waiting time, the finish time, and then the turnaround time. The formula for calculating this thing, for calculating the turnaround time, we said finish time minus the arrival time. Then we're calculating the waiting time, we said the start time minus the arrival time. The start time minus the arrival time. However, there is another formula for calculating the waiting time. It is the turnaround time minus the burst time. So the turnaround time here, since we've got, minus the burst time. So we should see that 3 minus 3, not so, we shall get the waiting time, which is 0. Then 4 minus 1, the waiting time is, the turnaround time minus minus the burst time. So this is 4 minus 2. You get the waiting time as 2. Then here we have 9 minus the burst time 6. You get what? Waiting time will be now equal to 3. Then we have 12 minus the burst time 4. The waiting time will now be equal to 8. So you see that even if you use the formula for waiting time is equal to turnaround time minus the burst time, and then waiting time is equal to start time minus the arrival time, you will still get the same answer. Now, when you check the question, we had another question here that had calculating what? We had calculating the startup process. We finished the finish time, the turnaround time. Now the average turnaround time. Calculating the average turnaround time, the waiting time we have for each process we have finished, then the average waiting time. So we have remained with the calculating the average turnaround time and then the average waiting time. So the average turnaround time, for the average turnaround time will be, let's calculate from here. This is the average turnaround, not so, around time, not so. The average turnaround time here, the process is you add all, then you divide by the processes. The processes we have here are 4. We have P0 as the first, P1 as the second, P2 as the third, and then P3 as the fourth. So the processes here we shall have 3, then plus 4 plus 9 plus 12, and this will then the whole of it divided by the 4 processes. So this one, first of all, we shall have is equal to what? 3 plus 4 plus 9 plus 12. That will be equal to what? Then after that, you divide it by 4. Okay. To do simple terms, this is a simple calculation. This will be equal to 28 divided by what? 4. So this will be 28 divided by 4 will be equal to 7. So the average turnaround time is equal to 7. So then we had what we call the average waiting time. So the average waiting time, let's calculate it from here. Average waiting time. So average waiting time, we shall do the same formula. It will be now 0, because we're calculating the waiting time, and the waiting time is around here, not so. We have 0 here, we have 2, we have 3, and we have 8. So this will be equal to 0 plus waiting time, we have 2, then plus 8, and this now be equal to 13. Okay, this will be equal to 13. So 13 divided by the 4 processes again, this will be 13 divided by 4. This will be equal to 3.25 as the answer. So in simple terms, this is how you calculate the burst time, or what called the execution time, the average time here for each processes. In our next video, we shall learn more on how to calculate short and other things. But please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and more support by hitting the bell so that you don't miss out on my next videos. I'll be uploading regularly on related IT related kind of content. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and thanks for watching. I wish you a nice time.